Welcome everybody. It's probably like the perfect weather to paint an adorable cup. And hopefully you're having a cup of tea while you paint this. And hopefully if you're having a cup of tea, you don't mistake your paint water for your tea or vice versa. I do it all the time. For your supplies today, you're gonna need clean water. I promise that is clean. There's just a lot of old paint in this jar. Your paints, they can be tubes or dried cakes like these. And you're going to need a brush or two, whatever size you feel comfortable using. I've got here a 7, a 6, and a 6. And now, this is a good, do you see the difference in those two 6s? This one's a lot thinner than that one. You can't really just say, oh, buy a size 6 brush. You have to kind of look at it when you go to the store. And then look at the 7, how much larger it is. You just really have to look at it and try a couple sizes to see what feels comfortable for you. I also have, a pencil and an eraser. You don't have to use a pencil and eraser, but I'm just gonna lightly outline the shape of the teacup and then just paint it in. So these are a couple samples here, and I can hold them up at the end of class if you want to screenshot any of them for a photo reference for later. But today I'm feeling kind of pastel, so I might actually just go, I think I'm feeling pink today. So I'm gonna go light pink on mine, but feel free to use any of these as samples. Use the colors you like, use the colors you prefer, use the colors that make you happy. So I'm gonna take you through drawing the teacup and saucer, and then we'll paint it in together however you want to paint it in. You can follow me with the flowers that I'm painting. You can paint different flowers, whatever is comfortable for you. We're just going to have fun. It's Friday evening, and we're going to get the weekend started in the best way ever with art. So to help me, I usually just draw a midline. And this is going to be sort of the middle-ish of my teacup. And it's really light, but you can see I just drew a straight-ish line. Don't get hung up on drawing a perfect teacup. I think they're a little more charming when they're wonky. So I think I want the top of my teacup to start here. And so I put a little notch right here. And then I think I want the bottom of my saucer to end there. So just got those two little notches on there. So I'm just going to draw an oval up here as best I can. It's probably going to be seriously wonky, but like I said, wonky teacups are the best. And this is going to be the mouth of the teacup. And I can already tell that my oval went up that way. If that really bothers you, you can fix it. If it doesn't bother you, you can leave it well enough alone. It semi bothers me, so I'm just going to try to bring that bottom part back down. If your oval is too thin and you want to make it thicker, go for it. So I'm just going to erase that first line. There we go. Perfectly wonky teacup. Okay. Severely wonky teacup, but we're going to go with it. And then I want the bottom of my teacup to be about here, and I also want it to be an oval. But I'm just going to sort of just draw in the bottom of an oval. If you want to draw the full oval in and then erase the top part, you can. And then I'm going to do this part here. I'm just going to bring that line in a little bit so there's a lip on the side of the teacup and connect it to the oval. And I realized that my oval was a little high up. I'm just going to cruise past it. And then I'm going to try my best to mimic that on the other side as much as I can. And then I'm just curving the line at the bottom just a little bit. I'm going to erase that first oval since it was a little too high. And then just kind of connect the bottom. And the reason you don't want a straight line is because the cup's not straight. And that's what my cup looks like so far. It's a little twisted, so I'm going to adjust my lines just a little bit. But if you like yours, you leave it as it is. I'm also going to make it slightly longer. And notice I'm just doing like short strokes like this with my pencil. I'm not drawing like a hard line because it makes it easier to grab the shape, and it's also easier to erase when you have light lines instead of darker lines. And at the end, you can erase all of your stray lines that you don't like. All right, now I'm going to give this teacup a bit of a foot. So you can see here. I just sort of curved it slightly, and then another oval on the bottom. Just basically mimic that first oval that you had before. There we go. I don't want it to be too thick. And then I'm going to do my best to just run it along the same line as that top curved line. And that's what that looks like. If you want it to be even daintier, you can make it even smaller if you want. And to do your saucer, you want to start about a quarter of the way up the teacup and then draw an oval the whole way around. And this one you may have to adjust a couple times. Ovals are a little funny like that. You always have to adjust. When you think you have it, it's a little crooked. I'm going to go through the cup. I can always erase it. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Kris, can you press just a little harder so we can see?
Yes.
I know the point is not to see the pencil in the end, but.
So I'm just making short little strokes until it looks like an oval that I like. It was a little wonky, so I had to adjust. And drawing through the cup is going to help you keep it a little more even than if you were to guess where it started on the other side. And when you like your shape, you can go ahead and erase all of your extra lines. And if you drew your lines too dark, I'll show you how to lighten them up. So that's my teacup so far. And you can go ahead and just adjust a little bit wherever you think you need to. Keep stepping back from it, like hold it away from your face and look at it, because now is the time to adjust stuff before you start painting it in. I think I want this to come in just slightly. It looks more like a coffee mug at this point. See, I just slimmed it down a little bit on the sides. I'm gonna erase those outer lines. And if you make a really good drawing of your cup that you really like, go ahead and grab some parchment paper out of the kitchen and trace it on there so that the next time you want to do a cup, you can just trace it instead of drawing it. No, it's not cheating because you drew it first. And then we'll get to the handle when you like. I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to play around with your shapes. And then we'll do the handle. I'll give you guys 2 more minutes and then we'll do the handle, which you can get fancy and do the decorative handle, the dainty little handle, or you can just do a plain, simple curve. It depends on what you're up to drawing.
Kris, someone's asking what size paper you're using.
This is an 8 by 10 piece of paper. It doesn't matter what size you use, but this is just what I'm using. You can do a little teeny teacup or you can do a really big teacup. It's up to you. Might be kind of cute to do a larger paper and put a couple teacups on there too, of course at a different time, but that would be really pretty, or even a couple different ones framed, hung next to each other would be pretty in a kitchen or a dining room. It'd be a great present for somebody who loves tea. Maybe get them a box of tea and a painting of a teacup. All right, so we're gonna do the handle. So all the handle is a backwards C. So before you even get all these flourishes in, if you don't want them, you just do a simple C. So I'm attaching mine. I'm gonna go with the outside first. And I'll try to draw it a little darker so you guys can see. Just like that. Kind of looks like a D now that it's attached to the cup. And if you want, so you get to decide how thick you want your handle. You make a smaller opening if you want a thicker handle, or a larger opening if you want a thinner handle. I think the thinner handle just looks dainty. I would do a thicker handle on a coffee cup. And I'm just sort of following that shape that I drew. Just like so. Now, in fancy teacups, there's usually a little thumb rest like that. And a little swoopy shape there that your fingers fit into. So I'm just going to bump out the top, just with a little nubbin, just a little nubby shape. Which I promptly erased accidentally. Okay, we'll do that again. I'm just gonna add a bump on there, like so. Nothing fancy, just a little bump. And if you want that second bump on the inside, you can add it or you can leave it out. So see, before I erase the line, that's how I drew it. Just a little bump. And then erase your original line. If you want to put more bumps like on the bottom, you can. I think I'm just going to leave it to these two today. That's my cup. And if you did your lines darker, I'll show you how to lighten that up, but I'm going to give you a minute to do your handle. And though these may look pretty symmetrical, if you look really closely, they are fairly wonky. But I think that adds to the charm of it. I'm going to paint the background. Then I'm going to show you the flowers that I'm going to use. And then I'll pop them on here and you can follow along. Or you can take your inspiration from these three or even a teacup that you already have. How pretty would it be to paint family china? Or something pretty that you find at the thrift shop. Okay, so if your lines are too dark, you don't want to erase it hard, because if you do that, then you're going to lose most of your shape. So what you want to do is just sort of tap your eraser and it'll get rid of some of that pencil without erasing all of it. Just lightly tap it. And if you see a few pencil lines coming through, it is not the end of the world. It just makes it look more stylized a little bit. We'll go with that. Sorry for the tapping noises. It'll be over soon, promise. All right. See how much lighter that image is? Just from tapping the eraser. Okay, so I'm gonna base coat my entire image with a light coat of pink paint, because that's just what I feel like using today. But by all means, use your favorite color. Use whatever you feel like.
Kris, you just got a little bit blurry on us. I don't know why. Just here we go. Okay.
I don't know why that happens. I still am not like 100% used to this camera. I can understand when I hold something up and move it, but just randomly, I don't know. Thankfully, it doesn't happen that often. All right, so I'm mixing a light pink. I've got some shell pink and opera pink, and that's what I'm mixing. If you want to go ahead and dilute some red to make pink, you can do that too. So I'm not painting the inside of the oval because I want that to stay sort of white. We're going to put a little bit of gray in there for some shadowing. And I'm painting this with a lot of water so that I can still paint flowers over it. You can see them. I'm just carefully going around my edges. And I flip my paper around to make it more comfortable. You don't want to sort of have to, oh, I always paint myself. So you don't want to twist your arm around to hurt yourself. So just move your painting around. Totally fine to do that. Also totally fine to paint yourself accidentally. I don't own any more clothes, I think, that don't have any paint left on, that are paint free. I've given up. At this point, it kind of adds something to the outfits. And I usually just leave the handle blank. I don't put a pattern on it, but you absolutely can if you want to. So my brush accidentally went out of the line. So I'm going to end up just making another little nub here where my accidental brush stroke was. I could have just thickened up the whole handle if I wanted to, but I didn't make that big of a mistake. You can also make the handle and the foot of your teacup a different color if you wanted to. But I'm just going to keep it all the same color today. But it would be fun to use like a contrasting color. If you get a little fiber in your brush, just pinch it out. Sometimes your clothing fiber or furniture fiber just gets trapped in there. And if anything's drying too fast before you can go back and fill in that area, you need more water in your paint. Don't be afraid to use water, it'll just dry. Okay, so this is my base coated cup. It doesn't matter if it's all smooth and perfect. If some areas are darker and some areas are lighter, that's totally fine. It's the fun of watercolor. Since the foot of the teacup is below, it will have a little bit of a shadow. So when it dries, I will paint another layer to darken that up a little bit. And that's it so far. So this area here, I will darken that up once it dries. So I'm going to set this off to the side to dry. Now we're going to work on the flowers. Does anybody have any questions so far?
No questions so far, Kris.
Everybody's busy painting.
Yeah.
So you can pick whatever colors you want for your flowers. I'm probably going to go with like pinks and peaches for mine. That's just the color mood I'm in today, which is funny because it's so spring and it's so fall outside. But I'm rolling with it. Okay. So the first flower that we're going to do is simple. We're just going to draw 4 petals. Kind of like a teardrop shape. Fill it in. Like that. And across from it, another one. Kind of looks like a peanut. And then one here and one here. So it's just like a crisscross. Almost looks like a bunch of balloons from overhead, maybe. And when it dries, we'll put a little detail on it. But for now, it's just going to look like balloons. Super simple. And all of these are that I'm doing are going to be first layers, and then when they dry, we'll go back and put the second layers on. So don't worry that they look a little strange at first. Okay, and for this one, it's just going to start as an oval. Like so. And we're just going to bump out a few petals. One over there, one over here. It's going to look kind of like a cloud, but we'll come back in and put details on it. Just like that. And these are a little simplistic, but I think they look really pretty. And this next one is going to be a cluster. So all I'm going to do, I'll show you before I do the actual flower, is to stamp with my brush. Now, I want my stamp to be, I want the tip of my brush to be down. So where the base of the flower is, that's where you want the tip of your brush, and you just want to stamp it. Then I'm going to angle my brush and stamp again. A little bit harder. And I'm going to put another one right next to it. And you can cluster together as many as you want to. See how it kind of looks like a little bit like a tulip maybe? And I'll put a stem on it when it dries a little bit, because these are really, really wet. Now, if yours are as wet as mine and you want them to dry faster, you want to rinse your brush, tap it off on your paper towel, and that makes your brush thirsty. And then you can just tap your brush into the flower or wherever, maybe if you use too much water on your teacup, and it'll take that water right up. So it can start to dry faster. I'm going to do one more little filler flower and then a leaf. And then hopefully this guy will be dry enough to do some texture on it. I don't know, it's a little shiny. So to know if your work is ready for you to put another layer without it sort of all running together, you see how that's shiny? You don't want it shiny. You want it to be matte. So matte means that it's dry. Shiny means that it's still wet. So I might blow on that a little bit. You can always use a hairdryer to speed things along if you're impatient, but we can wait. Okay, so one more filler is super easy. I'm just going to draw 3 yellow circles and fill them in. 1, 2, and they definitely don't have to be perfect circles. 3. And then when they're drier, not super dry, but when they're drier, I will put some stems on there. Okay, for my leaf, I think I'm going to use phthalo green today for my leaf. Feeling pastel. You also may have it in your set as Viridian. And then I'm going to mix a little bit of white to give myself a nice minty green. Notice I'm mixing it over whatever I had in my palette already. I always get interesting colors that way. Like it's muting that mint a little bit because it was a little bright. Add a little more water to help it mix. All right. And we're not doing the tip pressure leaf today. We are just going to draw an easy leaf. One curve on one side, one curve on the other side, and we are filling that in. Do it again, one curve on this side, one curve on this side, and fill it all in. Of course, if you want to do the leaf technique, which is tip of the brush, push down, tip of the brush, you can go for it. Okay? Whatever you want to do. Just have fun with it. And I'm just grabbing some pre-mixed green. And I'm just going to join these yellow circles together just like that. And then I'm going to join sort of these guys as well. However you join them, join them. Now, if you wanted to add a little leaf off to the side, you absolutely can. Have fun with it. Like so. Or not. It's up to you. Okay, I think we're sort of dry enough that I could put some details on here. Okay, so for this one, my details are just going to be a couple lines coming off of the center. Like a starburst. Like so. An asterisk, maybe. And I just used that same pink, just a darker version of it. I mixed a little more pink into it. This one, I'm just going to mix a little bit more orange into my peach. Because you want it to show up. And then I'm just going to draw a spiral. Maybe as I come out wider, I start with a small spiral. Maybe as I come out wider, I will make the spiral not touch, sort of do a dashed line. So it kind of suggests a rose, but it's really illustrative style. Ah, these are so pretty. I can't wait to put them on the teacup. Okay, for these little guys, I'm just going to put a little center on there with some dark blue. Just basically a dot. Oh, went blur again. Just basically a little dot on there. We're not gonna put any details on the yellow, but if you wanted to, you could mix up some darker yellow and put a couple dots on there. It's fun to add different textures. Make a little bit darker of that mint green. And I think I'm just gonna draw veins on this one. So I'm gonna draw the main vein down the middle, so one line. It doesn't have to be perfect. A couple veins coming off the side to meet the middle. Like so. How cute is that? Does anybody have any questions before we start painting it on the teacup?
No questions yet, Kris, but boy, is that pretty.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna leave these guys on top of here so you have the reference. I'm gonna darken up the foot of that teacup. I keep calling it the foot, but I don't know what it's actually called. The base of the teacup, maybe? Just gonna use a slightly darker pink and fill that in because there would be a shadow there. Maybe I made that just a little too different, but you can do whatever you like. You can also decide where you want your flowers to be. You might want to cluster them in the middle and have just one design, or you can scatter them all around. I prefer scattering them, so that's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna use a smaller brush because my larger brush uses a lot more paint. All right. So I'm going to do my little balloon flower. So it's basically 4 teardrop shapes that are opposite each other. So I'm going to pretend that some of it is wrapped around the cup and we can only see 3 petals. I got 1 petal here. I got half a petal here. And then another half petal over here. And then I'm going to fill those guys in. Just be careful when you get to the edge. So. And you could put another one wherever you want. I think I might put one down here while I have that color mixed up. And it's kind of fun to just sort of place them off the edge. Or if you like the whole flower, go ahead and fit it in. There we go. And I'm gonna leave it alone for right now, but I may tuck maybe another petal somewhere else. Haven't decided yet. Mix up some peach. Draw one of those oval flowers. I'm gonna tilt it just a little bit. I'm not really paying attention to where I'm placing them. I'm just randomizing it. But if you are the careful sort that wants to place everything in the perfect place, by all means, take your time and decide where you want to put things. Sometimes I like the random approach. Sometimes I run into a speed bump at some point and I go, oh, I probably should have thought that out. Just add a couple of petal bumps around the oval. Make it look like a cloud. It'll look like a flower once we put the details on it. Maybe I got a little bit of one poking out here. All right. Okay, so I think I'm going to do some of those stamped flowers right here. And I'm not pushing down as hard as I did before because I don't have as much room. So if I don't push down as hard, my flowers are going to be a little smaller. So I'm stamping, but sort of just with the tip of the brush. And I think that might be the only one for right now. Then I can decide if I want to put some more in somewhere else. Time for some yellow. Ran out of mixing places on my palette. Just pop it on here. If I run out of mixing places on my palette, what I usually do is stop and rinse off one of these bays. But it's not that serious. We can use any color today. That's kind of a pretty peachy yellow. Draw my circles in. Air quotes circles because they're going to be a little wonky. If you want your circles to be brighter, you might have to put a couple different coats. Which I may do after this dries. I just need to see how it dries. So I'll show you what I have so far. Starting to look cute. Now I find that I don't love my flowers until I start putting greens in. The contrast of the green is what makes it interesting to me. So maybe I'll start putting in a couple leaves. Everybody doing okay so far? I'm gonna pop a leaf over here. Maybe another one going in the opposite direction. Liking that a lot already. The green really makes it pop. Maybe that one was slightly too large, but it's okay. This one's coming off the edge a little bit.
I love this, Kris, because it's a creative tip. You can see even with dressing or with home decorating, you always need that little accent to make everything else pop, don't you?
Yeah, you
Not
do.
overdoing it.
You really
Really
do.
neat.
And that's also the beauty of using complementary colors. When you get the complementary colors in there and also different values, meaning how dark and how light things are, it really helps a painting to come alive and be more interesting to look at.
So in this case, the complementary colors would be red and green,
Yep.
even though the version of red is pink.
Yes, definitely. So if you have a color wheel, or you can go online and Google a color wheel, it'll show you. It'll go from all the different colors, but also light to dark. So it'll show you like, you know, the light green versus is across from the light pink and things like that. It's really fun to help you learn how to use color. And so I'm going to hold this away from me to see if I need to stop myself. I think I will for right now and start putting in some details on the flowers. Because you
I
can,
wish I could see what everybody else is doing.
I know, I know. When your head is down and you're working, sometimes you miss details and you can really overcomplicate things. So you always want to sort of step back or just stretch it out in front of you and look at it to see where something should go. Putting in those asterisks in the middle there. Putting in that orangey or peach. I'm going to start with a spiral. And then I'm going to switch to dashed lines to finish that spiral. I just felt like taking an illustrative approach today with some funky flowers. And of course, this one you're not going to see the spiral because it's too close. So I'm just going to pop in a few little dashed lines there. Okay, I want this to be a real teacup that I can own. Super cute. Okay, and I'm mixing up another green to go ahead and give this guy some stems. Love that. Give that one a little leaf. I think this one has room for a leaf too. See how that's coming along? I need another layer on my yellow. It's all muted over the pink. And then I'm going to put the details on the leaves. Some of my leaves are still a little wet, so I might not put the details on all of them. And then you stop and look and see, am I done? Does this need anything else? Is it going to get too crazy if I put anything else? And I don't want this to get cluttered, so I'm not going to add anything else. However, I do think my handle needs to be just slightly darker. So I'm going to go in with another coat of pink. Just kind of shows that it's separate, but attached to the cup. Yeah, I think that helped a lot. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes and then we'll paint the inside of the cup. See how this is sort of just a little bit gray to show some depth? That's what we'll be doing. Now on a couple of these, I put in a gold edge. If you want to do that and you have the color yellow ochre, you can just use yellow ochre to trace around the edge of the saucer and the cup. Then I did this one and I kind of like how it turned out without the gilding on the edge. So when we paint the gray in the middle, it'll bring it all back together and look like a full shape. But if you want to go ahead, if you have gold ink or gold paint and you want to do that, or if you have the yellow ochre, go for it and you want to. I'll give you 2 minutes and then we'll paint the inside of the cup and we'll be all set. So if you guys have questions, get your questions in. I hope you guys are having fun painting your teacups. Now I'm just painting the inside of the teacup slightly gray just to suggest that there's some depth in there. But if you want to go crazy and color it in a color, you absolutely can, because there are mugs that have color on the inside. So you can definitely do that. But I'll show you how to suggest that there's depth. And how I do that is with some gray. So what I do is I take my black paint, tiny little bit of my black paint, little goes a long way. I think I'm going to use another palette for this because I am out of space on there. I can already tell that was too much paint. And you can test it on your paper. Like that's a bit dark. Just gonna add a little more water. It's better to layer up than to go in too harsh with black paint. So I'm actually turning this around. And what I'm going to do is, you want to make sure your paint has a lot of water in it. And then you just want to carefully trace along the bottom of the oval. You want this paint to stay nice and wet. And then you want to trace around the sides. Just this side and this side. Just a little bit. You want to come in just a little bit, like maybe a quarter of the way on each side, like that. And then you want to wash your brush out. Make sure there's clean water on your brush. I took a little bit of that water off, and then you want to blend. Just rub your brush back and forth and let that clean water blend in with the paint that's on there. And you may really have to scrub at it, but don't worry, this 140-pound paper can withstand the scrubbing. So your goal is to have the middle be a little lighter than this edge, like that. So you see that there's depth in the teacup. And it would be cute when that's dry if you took that yellow ochre or maybe one of these fun colors and just put your initials, like how some fine china is. That would be cute. And then I'll hold all of these up in a couple minutes so you can take a picture of your screen if you want, so that you could, if you want to paint later, you have some reference photos for that. Any questions for me?
No questions yet, Kris.
Everybody's painting so diligently.
I know. I think at this point people have become pros, at the painting. We
I
don't have
think
as
so
many
too.
questions
I
about
think so.
colors and paper and brushes.
Agreed.
And I think people have gotten confident, which I'm really happy about.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. My goodness, it's gotten so dark outside. Wow. It's kind of startling sometimes. Okay, grab your phones. I'm going to hold these up so you can grab a shot so that you can paint later. blurred. And then I'll hold up the one from today. Come on. Be blurred. There we go. And you guys can take your time and finish your teacups whenever you want. You can paint more of them. You can email Lorraine or you can email me. We love to see what you paint. My email address is Kris Loya Art, KrisLoyaArt @gmail.com. And Lorraine can give you hers, and you guys can email us and show us what you made.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. We've got a couple minutes left.
We'd just love to see all of those framed hanging in a kitchen or so pretty.
Thank you.
And for those of you who have asked, we are recording this and it will be probably, I have to give it to the editor after WebEx gives it to me. So sometime next week, it should be on the library's YouTube page. All right. I hate to pick a favorite, but I love the one with the oranges on it. I really do. I just love citrus. Anything with lemons
Too.
or oranges, just
I do
beautiful.
too. I love that one too.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Kris Loya, for another fabulous art class. And when will you be back with us, Kris? I meant to
Let me check.
take a look. I had it up a second ago and didn't memorize it. Let's
I
see.
think the 23rd.
That's right. That's the Wednesday
Oh,
before Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Right. At 4 o'clock still.
Mm-hmm. And we're
Yeah.
going to do a fall wreath, I think, that day.
Someone's asking when the turkey video will be up. That should be up early next week as well. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you
Bye.
guys. Have a good weekend.